Hey guys, in this video we're going to make our first BTD6 mod. By now you should have all the necessary files installed in order to make BTD6 mods. If you don't, check out the Getting Started Part 1 video in this tutorial series so you can learn which programs you need to have. Also, check out Getting Started Part 2 if you want to learn the basics of C# computer programming so making BTD6 mods won't be so difficult. Basically, it just covers basic programming terms and stuff like that. Anyways, let's get into making our first mod. Today we're going to be making a Hypersonic Towers mod. To start off, press the start button on your taskbar and then type in Visual Studio. We want to open up Visual Studio 2019. When you get to a screen like this, click on Create New Project right here. And look for Class Library at the top here. Type in Class Library. We want to make one for C#, so click on All Languages and then C#. And we want to do a class library for .NET Framework. So double click on that. Now let's give your mod a name. I'm going to do YouTube Hypersonic, but you can call it whatever you want. Then you got to select the location. I have my BTD6 mods in a specific folder, BTD6 mods. So I'm going to put mine there, but you can put yours wherever you want. Try not to put it in a hard drive that has a little bit of space, because this is going to generate a whole project. It's not just your mod, it's a whole project. Make sure place solution and project in the same directory is checked like this, and make sure you have at least .NET Framework 4.7.2. You can click here, let it drop down, and select one, but make sure it's at least 4.7.2. Now we're done with that. Click on the Create button and it will create your BTD6 mod project. So I'm going to be explaining this as we go, but the first thing I want to do is delete this class 1 file right over here. Right now it's showing in a window called the Solution Explorer, which is this little box right here. If you're not seeing this box, you can click on the View button at the top and click on Solution Explorer right there. The reason I want to delete this class file right here, this class1.cs, is because I don't like what it's named. So I'm going to delete this, click OK. Then I'm going to right click right here where it says YouTube Hypersonic, click on Add, and let's do a class right here at the bottom. And I'm just going to call this main.cs, press enter, and we're good to go. We could have just renamed it, but there was a little more work involved and I wanted to just make this as easy as possible. Next, we're going to press enter here once, and we're going to, in front of this line right here where it says class main, we're going to put the word public, so it's public class main. Now we have to reference some of those BTD6 files that MelonLoader generated for us. Referencing means we're going to include it in our project, so our project can use the code that's inside of it. To do that, in our Solution Explorer over here, right-click on the References button, and click on Add References. Then click on the Browse button, and go to your BTD6 folder. So once you're here, go ahead and click on the MelonLoader folder and grab melonloader.modhandler.dll. Don't click OK yet, we gotta get a couple more, so click on Browse again, and now go into the Managed folder and get assembly-c#.dll. Now the last thing we're gonna add is nkhook, so click on Browse, then go back to your BTD6 folder and go to Mods. You should see nkhook6.dll. If you don't, you're going to have to make sure you download that. In the part 1 video, I cover how to do that. But click on nkhook.dll and click OK. Now we're ready to go. For starters, at the top, go ahead and select the using system stuff and then just get rid of it. And now do using MelonLoader. Press enter, and we're also going to do using Harmony. And press enter one more time. We're going to do using nkhook6.api. Make sure you put a semicolon at the end of each line. In this programming language, C#, almost every line is going to have a semicolon at the end. If you notice, these two lines don't. They're pretty much the only exceptions. There's a few other times, but for the most part, most of the time, it's always going to have a semicolon. Alright, so next on this line, public class main, put a space, then a full-on colon, and then type in melon mod, like that. And this tells the program that we're making a melon mod that will work with MelonLoader. Now, inside of these brackets right here, do public override You can press tab and it'll like autocomplete. And now we're gonna do on application start. And then I press tab and you see it auto-completed. Now below this line, press enter and then do logger. And you wanna make sure it's the nkhook6 logger. On the right side, you'll see there's different names. You got Google Play games.ourutils, and then you have nkhook6. We want nkhook6, so go ahead and get that. And then do dot log parentheses and quotes, double quotes, which represents a string. And we're gonna say, you know, YouTube Hypersonic has loaded. Now you can replace YouTube Hypersonic with whatever your name is. You don't have to do this step, but it's really helpful because when people are to use your mods, they need to know if your mod loaded or not, because sometimes it doesn't work. So if they see, oh, you know, I did see the Hypersonic, that one did load. Also during testing, it helps you know if your mod loaded successfully. All right, so below this bottom bracket here, that connects to the one that's for public class. So below this one right here, press enter a couple times, and then do a square bracket, and then type the word harmony, and we want to do harmony patch, like this. In a later video, I'll explain this in more detail, but for now, just follow along. We're gonna do the parentheses like this, and we're gonna type out the word type of, and then we're gonna do parentheses again, and we're gonna do weapon. Make sure it's the one from assets.scripts.simulation.towers.weapon. Basically, the one from simulation. And then press tab. Now press the outside parenthesis, or you could just press the right arrow. Then do a comma, and then double quotes because we're gonna do a string. Now for the string, type in initialization. I don't know how to spell. Let me double check this. All right, so my bad, it's initialize with an S. And then, let's see here, press enter, and now type public class, and you can give this any name you want, but we're gonna give it a name specific to what we're doing right here with weapon initialize. So we're gonna do weapon initialize underscore patch. Now press enter, and then do the curly brackets like that. So to explain this real quick, if you watched Getting Started Part 2, this will be a little easier to understand. What we're doing is we're doing a patch. We're hooking the initialize method of the weapon class. So if you remember about classes, classes have code that relates to each other. Right now we're hooking a function or a method inside of the weapon class. That function or method is the initialize function, which is what it does when it first creates the weapon. We're going to use this to change the speed that the weapon fires at. So when the weapon is created, we're going to say, hey, by the way, while you're creating this weapon, change that speed to be 1 billion, will you? Cool, thanks. And that's how we do it. So next, inside these curly brackets down here, go ahead and type public static void, and then type the word postfix. Put the parentheses at the end, press enter, and do the curly braces like that. Now, press enter, so you have a space at the top, and we're gonna do those square brackets again, and now do harmony, and then we're gonna do postfix, like this. Now, this is what a simple hook looks like. This is the framework of a hook. So like I said, we are hooking the initialize function of the weapon class, and what this postfix means is after the initialize method finishes, do our stuff. We could also do a prefix, which means before the initialize method, do our stuff. But in this case, we're gonna do after. If you remember, classes have what are called instances. Using the example from the Getting Started Part 2 video, each super monkey you place down is an instance of the super monkey class. So relating that to this, each weapon that uses the initialize function is actually an instance of the weapon base class. What's cool about Harmony, the system we're using for our hooks, is we can get the actual instance that is using that function. To do that, inside these parentheses here, we're gonna pass a parameter. So we'll type weapon, which is the data type, and then press space, and then do underscore twice, and type the word instance. When you're trying to get the instance, you have to do it exactly like this. The data type, which is basically the same as up here, and then underscore underscore instance. If you did it right, you've now got access to the instance that's using this function. It's also the instance that called this hook. And that's how we're going to manipulate this. So inside of these curly braces for the public static void postfix, we're going to do underscore underscore instance dot weapon model dot rate. Make sure to get the one with the lowercase r. And then do space equals 0. Put a semicolon at the end, and we're done. Awesome, so this is a functioning hypersonic tower mod. If we tried to use this now, though, it wouldn't work. And the reason why is we have to give our mod a little more information to work with Melon Loader. So in our Solution Explorer, click on this arrow over here for properties, and then double click on assemblyinfo.cs. Anywhere in this file, but I'm going to paste it right here, you're going to add these 2 lines of code. I'm going to have these in a description so you guys don't have to worry about it. You can just copy and paste it. But we're going to need these two lines of code. If you notice there's a red little squiggly line, that means there's an error. So just hover over it and then click on Show Potential Fixes and then click on Using Melon Loader. And now it's going to work. But we're going to customize this so it works with your mod specifically. So at the top here was our project name. In here, you're going to want to put your project name, whatever you named it. Mine was YouTube Hypersonic, so that's why it shows there. But if you just start typing your project name, you'll see it shows up in this thing called IntelliSense. It'll do that little pop-up and show it, so just click on that, and then make sure it's .main, or whatever the main entry point is. So wherever you put this public override application on start or whatever, that's the file you want to have right here. Then give your mod a name. What do you want to call it? You can call it anything you want to call it. But for us, we're going to do Hypersonic Mod. Then you've got your version number. Put any kind of version number you want here. And lastly, you have your author. For this second line, we're not going to touch this line right here. This is just basically which game is it for, or sorry, who's the publisher and what game is it for. All right, we're ready to test this out. So go ahead and press Control B on your keyboard, or right click on your project and click on Build, and it's going to create your mod. So what it's doing is it's building or compiling or putting all your code together into one file. That file is going to have the name of your project and then end in .dll. So mine should be YouTube Hypersonic.dll. So I built it, it was successful. Now I need to get my file. But where is it? Right click on the YouTube Hypersonic thing and click on Open Folder in File Explorer. It'll take you to something that looks like this. Just click on Bin, Debug, or Release, depending on where you had it. And you'll see all this stuff. This is really difficult to look at, so we're gonna fix this. But before that, go back to Visual Studio, and remember how I said Debug or Release? Right here at the top, if you click on Debug, you'll see Release. So that's how you can switch between them. Release is usually what you do when you're actually releasing your mod because it has some code optimization and stuff. But while you're testing, you can do debug. And then when you build it, it's going to be in the debug folder. But yeah, all this weird, crazy nonsense here, this is way too much. So, we're going to minimize this. And click the down arrow on references and then select everything except analyzers. And you'll see it opens up in this property window right here. If you don't see the properties window, just click on view and then click on properties window. And now that you have all these selected, what you're going to want to do is see this copy local thing? Click the down arrow and set that to false. We don't need all those extra references in our local directory. Now just right click on your project again, click on rebuild this time. If you go back to your debug folder, you'll see we only have this now. So go ahead and copy the YouTube Hypersonic.dll, press Ctrl C, go to your BTD6's mods folder, paste it in there, and since our mod requires nkhook6, you gotta make sure nkhook6 is in your mods folder, and when you're distributing your mod, make sure people know they need nkhook. Anyways, we've got our mod in the game, everything's ready to go, let's go ahead and start BTD6. Awesome, so the game is starting and you can see in the Melon Loader console it says my Hypersonic mod, which is the name I gave it in Melon Loader, and then it says YouTube Hypersonic is loaded. So now we know our mod is in the game. And isn't that just nice to see your mod is loaded? One thing I want to point out is if you notice, NKHook 6 has an update feature where it'll check your mod for updates. In a later video, I'll show you guys how you can do that with your mod, and it's as easy as adding one line of code to your mod. Anyways, let's get back to it. Click on play, click on any random map, and go to sandbox or whatever you want. I'm gonna go ahead and get some ZOMGs going just while I get everything set up. So now those guys are going, and I like this, so let's go ahead and set this bomb tower guy right here. And look at that, dang, that is crazy. He's just annihilating them. He just wiped out like 10 ZOMGs in, I don't know, 10 seconds? Awesome, but that is the Hypersonic mod for BTD6. It was super easy. It did have some setup involved, but once we got the setup out of the way, we were able to make it hypersonic in as little as this one line of code. We're gonna do one more thing to make our lives easier from now on. And if you guys stuck around for this long in the tutorial, it's gonna benefit you a lot because we're gonna make it so we never have to do that setup again. So at the top up here, click on Project, click on Export Template, and make sure Project Template is selected, and click on Next. And we'll just do BTD6, Hypersonic Template, or let's do Mod Template 1. Yeah, Mod Template 1. We'll go like that. Make sure automatically import this template into Visual Studio is checked. If you want, you can add a description. I'll do, you know, BTD6, Hyper, like that. And you can add an image or whatever if you want. I'm gonna click on Finish. And now it should be like this. Want to see something really cool? Check this out. I restarted Visual Studio. I click on Create New Project. And if you notice, if I have all languages selected, all platforms, and all project types, you'll see I have a mod template for BTD6. If I double click on this, I can now create a BTD6 mod that is a duplicate of the mod we just made. And this means we can skip all that setup we just did and go straight into making our mods. We're gonna be using this from now on in the future because it's so much easier to deal with. But that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.